We are back here on NAL Doa Jacob Cookies with you here at the desk, and we got another great match coming up. We saw the big upset just now in Astralis taking down Sonics, but we got another one where, you know, maybe we're just moving into the upset portion of the day because we got DarkZero versus Mirage. Obviously, DarkZero kind of favored there. They are meticulous. They strive to perfection, sometimes maybe kind of to a fault, but then we've got the X factor in the reworked Mirage. So, Jacob, like, what are your takes? What are your thoughts coming into this one?
I mean, this is another one where you can very clearly announce who the underdog is.
Yeah.
It's going to be Mirage,
Yeah.
if only because they have so many different question marks going into it. It's kind of like we mentioned, anytime there's a roster move of any severity, it turns you from good, bad, or somewhere in the middle to an unknown that no one can really account for, like regardless if it's 3 players like it is for Mirage, or just 1 like it was for Astralis, and look at how they turned out. So, for rebuilt teams, we saw Beast Coast already catch a win today, so why can't Mirage do the same?
Yeah.
Problem with that is Beast Coast played against another rebuilding team.
True.
I wouldn't say that DZ's rebuilding. DZ has some problems. DZ has some identity crises.
They've been getting better even since SI, though. Well, like, during SI, it felt like their improvement was pretty drastic.
For sure, but it's definitely not like, you know, like Farabella, where it's like,
Yeah,
the whole roster got blown up. Okay,
Sure.
So,
So then what is it? Like, as far as DZ goes, like, obviously they're a great team. They came in second to Sonics in the NAL finals last year. You know, they went to SI, you know, where they, on paper, appeared to be a pretty good team recently. So when I talk to everyone, I feel like there's still some concern among the casters and the analysts as far as, like, the performance of this team. Like, where does that come from?
It feels like they could go somewhere in the short term. They can
Sure.
always be a team to crack in the top 4, but if they were to get to an international stage, there's not really enough follow-through, or they can't push themselves like that last distance to get like across the finish line. And we thought back in Stage 3 there was a pretty significant role swap. We've known Canadian as a support IGL for a long time. He'll be the one in the back line, he'll be the one in the planting, he's playing Thermite, and then he swapped over to a flex IGL position, and that entire team identity drastically changed, which means he's now playing and calling the shots from the thick of things as opposed to kind of seeing everything from just like drone view.
That seems a lot harder.
In some cases, yeah, but I feel like Troy is someone who can manage the mayhem that DarkZero inevitably causes. If they have been able to fix the problem of like getting into a building on time and then like setting up and like completing all of their steps, if they don't fall prey to their own DZ syndrome, then presumably they should be able to do better.
All right. Well, so while we get your take on that, Cookies, I want to also look at the map bans too while we sort of like get into this a little bit more, because there's a lot to talk about, right? Because after that last match, I feel like everything is kind of out the window. We really don't know. Coin or not, we have no idea, I think, who's going to win things going forward. As we see, again, Clubhouse and Villa banned out early. We see that a lot. Cafe, though, still open for the moment.
well, Jacob, I'm curious your take on this, because it's like, obviously it's Sonic's last game out.
Right.
Kind of said it was a dice roll, right? If you're DZ and you're playing a team like Mirage and you're on paper, like, there's no reason you should lose to Mirage. Do you overthink here and go somewhere crazy, or do you just go to a basic map, keep it simple?
Basic map for sure, yeah, and that kind of philosophy is there because they were the ones to ban away 2 of the new ones already off the rip. I'd say them taking Clubhouse off is probably a good idea because that's one that Mirage played a lot, even if their record on it was pretty abysmal over the past 3 months. We get down to just 2 left, so we are going to have one of the OG maps theoretically. No Cafe, no Oregon. That is, like, Mirage's best map was Coastline, so that's already off the board. They can't go back to it anymore, so they have to find something at least a little bit more similar. And they also took Villa off because they want to preserve it, so no Chalet. We're heading to Bank, and neither one of these teams are that proficient on it. Mirage typically don't ban it, but the one time they played it since Stage 3, they've lost on it. And DarkZero, for their own part, they've played it 8 times in that same time frame, but they only have a 38% win rate on it. They're 3-5. So it's not an inherent favor towards either side at the minute.
Do you feel like this almost maybe gives a little bit of an edge to Mirage, Cookies, in that we maybe have more recent games of DZ on this map possibly to draw from?
A little bit, except DZ's kind of played a drastically different. Well, I wouldn't say like drastically, but I've seen like some very interesting stuff out of DZ. There's the shield. There's like different types of DZ. There's like shield DZ.
Yeah.
There's like, you know, I mean, so you don't know what you're gonna.
Canadian's playing Monty, or he's playing Jackal, or he's playing Capitao, or something like.
Right. So it's like
this will be the map where he switches and tries a lot of different things.
Exactly. And well, when you talk about try different things. Yeah, I don't know. Do you overcomplicate? Are they still trying to come up with crazy new stuff? Are we going to see an OSA or something today?
Do they want to overcomplicate things for themselves, I think, is more the problem. Because they don't know what Mirage is going to do, but at the same time, that's a decent point. Mirage could know exactly what DarkZero is going to do, because if you remember back at the 6th Invitational, They beat TSM on this map, won that series.
Exactly.
The one time we saw an NA versus NA matchup, it was DarkZero trumping the eventual world champions, and this map was the catalyst for it.
That's right. So let's talk a little bit more about DarkZero, actually, as we move forward towards the map. Let's talk about the roster a little bit. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about Canadian, moving over from Space Station a little while ago. And, I would say Space Station's kind of recovered strategically from that. We'll talk about them later in the day. But Canadian really trying to strive for perfection with this team, trying to create a system, as it were, for everyone to operate super tightly under. It really does feel when you hear these players talk, especially him, that they want to make something that's just sort of this impenetrable force shield of strategy, right? Can they do it, though?
I want to talk about Canadian. And I want to talk about Canadian right
Everybody
now.
does.
Okay?
All right.
Because some of y'all have lost your doggone mind, right?
Oh, really?
Canadian was the guy that came up with the IGL on frag. And this was the guy who originally... He's the one that came up with this. The Ash running and drop shotting and calling the shots. And being the big dog captain with the crazies. That was
He did it with the Asher Zoe back in the day.
Yeah, now
he
he's
wrote
a
the
little
book on it.
now he's a little bit older. His knees, they don't quite move like they did in 2017, right?
You hear
I
the
get
creaking sound sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. People yes, he's been around. He's been around. I get that. But you also keep in mind, Eclipse. I've heard Eclipse say this multiple times, by the way. He likes playing, like, for example, a thermite or something. He likes the gun.
Sure.
Hand bazoo. If you're playing it, and this is how I've always understood thermite from my days of playing. You put the charge. I wish y'all could see. You put the charge, and then you go kill things after you put it. It's not like if you see a Panba on thermite, like for example on a map like this, maybe. It's not like they're telling Panba to go hide in a corner, right? This map is just systematic. It's step by step. You gotta do stuff. You gotta breach, right? You can't just run in with Twitch. I know people are always like F2 bazoo and they want that so badly, but you gotta do the steps first. You gotta play the map first. Then you can play the FPS part. Bank is much more strategic compared to a lot of maps in the pool, I would say. In that regard, it's definitely much more emphasis on step by step. You can't just skip and do whatever you want in Bank. You're gonna get 7-0'd or something. So I think DC knows what they're doing. I think everybody needs to relax. Yeah, they didn't win SI. Yeah, sometimes they trip up internationally.
They still win pretty far, though.
Still went far. So maybe we just need to relax, let them get better. See what happens.
No, I think my primary point on DZ is actually what you mentioned. Like, Panbazoo is the one who I think had one of the higher entry stats overall, especially at the 6th Invitational, but he wasn't first in. It was usually a combination of NJR and Hyper, but mostly NJR. We need to, like, kind of put the idea to bed that Hyper, even though he can be a superstar player with high stats, isn't their primary entry anymore. That's mostly NJR's job. But what are they doing? They're taking him and Hyper and funneling defenders into Panbazoo, which is why he's got such a high entry stat. That's a pretty good way to attack overall.
So let's take the NJR conversation one step farther and actually look at some of his stats as we go on and kind of talk about how that kind of factors in to what we can expect from this guy.
Number 4 overall rating, I believe, from the 6th Invitational. I'll just do a very quick cursory check to back my facts up. He was insane. He was one of the EVPs of the Invitational. He had a fantastic time. 3rd place, in fact. So my stat was wrong. He did way better. He was phenomenal, but it's taken a long time for him to really come into his own. The man has been the vertical answer that these guys have been looking for a while. He wasn't meant to be a second entry initially, but now he's kind of taken that role. He can play from top down with the best of them in a way very similar to guys like Eska, but he's doing it much faster with a much more like decent structure around him. And I do think as much hype as we give to Canadian or to Panba for kind of being the old blood new guard type of thing, it's nice to see a player like NJR really come into his own.
Yep, I am an NJR fan myself.
Oh.
I think there was like a R6 Fantasy League or something. I don't know. I like first picked this dude back when he was on Disrupt. He's one of those guys. I saw the twinkle in his eye, and I knew he was something fierce.
Yeah.
So glad he's on DZ these days. And I'm so glad he's kind of coming into his own as a player. I think what do you have, like he had some game against like G2 a while back. It was like 18-2 or something.
Yeah,
but,
that's
like,
true.
I think that's where people get the idea that, yeah, you're supposed to just let NGR lock whatever up and just run around. It's like, it doesn't work like that, right? So they need to put him in a situation as best they can, but I don't think they should force it, and I don't think they should try some over-intricate way of doing it. I think they just play their game, and they should be favored today.
I'd say so too, yeah.
On paper, and according to the analysts, according to a lot of the casters, and we haven't made predictions yet. We're going to get to that a little bit later, but on paper, it looks like obviously DZ with a bit of an edge again. understatement. But let's talk a little bit about the other team. Let's talk a little bit about the underdog here. We've got Mirage coming in, a team that had a really large rework actually during the offseason. A team that, when we talked to players in Vegas, when we were kind of going over, getting ready for the season, there was some excitement about this roster, but there was also a feeling around it too that they were going to be one of the bottom teams in the league. Is that going to be the case, Jacob? Yes or no?
Probably. It sucks to say that, mostly because there's a lot of talent here. There's people have been looking for Benji to do something
exactly.
for a long time.
People keep saying there's talent, but then they keep saying they're going to be on the bottom.
No, exactly. Which, if you're in the NAL and you can't say that you're an untalented squad.
You got to be good to get there, obviously. Yeah.
These guys have been good for a long time at a very different level of competition, at like a CL level. Razor was the best player on a really bad XSET squad, so that does kind of beg the question: how good could he be if he had a better support staff around him?
Sure.
And I would argue that even though this Mirage squad last year with 3 different pieces was better than XSET, I still wonder if he'll actually be given an environment in which he can show what he's truly about. He's a grinder, but what else does that really mean? Marm is here after a stint in CL over the course of the past year. She played for Nocturnes most recently in CL. Nice to see her addition. Melted was on that Parabellum roster that got them all the way to the league, but even Melted very nearly cost Parabellum the ability to even get to relegations in the first place. The number of question marks around this team does suggest, even though they might make a run, it will probably be very short-lived. The talent is there, but the continued success, the confidence right now is not there.
This was one of the first teams that I talked to when I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago, and the thing that struck me was the attitude with this team. I mean, Thomas, on your screen right now, it's a big part of it, right? The positive attitude on this team. Everybody seemed very comfortable with each other, despite having not had a chance to practice together all that much.
Yeah.
The other thing that stuck out to me when I was talking to these players is Razor, that man on your screen right there. One of the, maybe newer, exciting players in the league. And when we were talking to him, he had some words about Canadian, where he was saying, and again, he had the utmost respect for Canadian. He thinks he's a great player, obviously. He said this in the nicest way, that he felt like he's maybe a little bit old. Maybe it was time for him to step out the door a little bit. So, I mean, again, very respectfully. He said it as respectfully as you can.
Sure,
Clearly,
okay.
He has a lot of love for the guy, but still. But let's talk about somebody else on Mirage for a moment. Let's talk about Tomas, the person that mentioned a little bit earlier. This guy was like a joy to talk to. He is honestly like one of the nicest people I've met
He's a homie
in
for
person.
sure.
He really was. And again, I'm meeting a lot of these people for the first time, right? But Cookies, why don't you tell us a little bit about the stats, a little bit about Thomas, what he's going to bring to the team other than a very loud voice during rounds.
I'm just going to tell you these stats, they're just eye candy.
Sure.
Thomas is not a .89 player. I think Thomas, a lot like Slasher Beast Coast. And as much as Razor said whatever he said about Canadian, he needs someone like Thomas on his team. And it's really going to be Thomas versus Canadian today.
I'd say so.
It's going to be who's better at calling this game, as it is, as a leader, as an IGL. And the truth is, maybe Razor, you shouldn't be talking so crazy about Canadian, because it would be nice if Mirage had a Canadian, right?
Right.
But if you're Thomas in this game, this is the time to prove. Maybe you're better than Troy. Maybe Thomas is better than Troy. That can be established today. Otherwise, it's like
Be an interesting story, sure.
what are we saying?
Well, it's like we don't have a Nyx IGL situation on this team anymore. He was one of those players, along with Loaded and Dream, who's no longer here. And Thomas was kind of tasked with finding a way to put the pieces of this team together, especially since Mirage also didn't figure they'd be losing Dream. They thought that they'd be getting him in Newers because of that report. But now what we're looking at is a situation where Thomas needs to corral these guys together into something workable and find a way to still push through in spite of not also having Nyx's leadership qualities there along with him. So you see what I mean about all these questions for Mirage continuing to just, dogpile, and it never really feels like it's going to end, but at some point we know we have to answer the question, is this team good or not? And this is a pretty good opportunity for them to prove yes or no.
I think if nothing else, they seem well aware of the position that they're in, both in terms of experience and practicing in position to the other teams in the league. Thomas, when I talked to him a couple weeks ago again, he said he put a lot of it on his own shoulders. He said, I'm the one who needs to be the leader. I'm the one who needs to keep the positive attitude flowing in the team no matter how the rounds are going. So I feel like if nothing else, they know what they're in for coming in NAL Stage 1. But the question is, do the analysts and the casters know what they're in for in terms of predictions? It's time to find out, and it's time to introduce our casters once again. We have Jonah and Pengu over at the casting desk. How's it going? How's your day been going so far?
Well, it's been going pretty well. Of course, we're a little bit bummed that our predictions last time didn't go so well, but to be fair, nobody's did. This time, I think I'm in a similar boat. What are you thinking about this one?
I am sad. It's very plain and simple because I feel like I'm gonna do the same old, there's no chance Mirage can beat DarkZero stick, and then I'm gonna guess that DarkZero wins, and they lose, and I have 0% prediction rate. So I'm gonna stay neutral in this one. I refuse to put my vote.
You're just not gonna
No,
pick
you
any.
can't do
No,
that. You
That's
I
a
am
cop-out.
switching.
No,
You have to vote. No, we're not going to let him get away with
Doa,
that,
are
are
you
we?
gonna let that
Leave.
happen?
We're not
Doa,
going to let him get
one
away with
time
Pengu,
that.
Doa.
are you seriously going to let a call
No,
get the
no,
best
no, no.
of you, bro?
People might
Alright.
say we look like Pengu, but I'm not going to let you get away with that. I'm sorry, man.
No.
Okay,
sorry.
if I
I don't
have
agree
to
with that either.
choose,
You do.
okay. I'm gonna go with Mirage then. I think Mirage will come
Wow.
out on top, and we'll see an upset
Is he okay?
once again.
Oh, he just.
FIFA 3,
what
all
did
the
he-
way.
Listen.
what did he-
Okay.
I,
All right.
I know where you're coming from because you look at Marmalade and you look at Melted. They come from CL. As a CL boy myself, I want to see these players thrive. Do I think they're going to thrive against DarkZero? Not really, and that's why I'm going to throw my prediction towards DarkZero, but I want it. And if I'm wrong here, I would be more than happy to be wrong in my prediction.
Yeah.
All
I mean,
right. Go ahead. Nope.
I was
Nope.
gonna say at least one of us will be right.
Yeah, that's true.
At least one of
that
us will be
is
on the
true.
board.
And now they're going to fight mid-cast.
That is that might be the only prediction you get right in this one is that one of you will be right. But
okay.
it is true. That is true. Well,
We
thanks
have
for
a
your
coin,
predictions.
And
We'll-
now the desk is a coin flip. Unbelievable.
Well, I mean, yeah, we'll find out. But we'll get back to the casters a little bit later when it's time to actually start the match. It's time to get the predictions from my lovely analyst here, Jacob. What do you got?
So, as much as I appreciate a team with no expectations coming in and trying to unseat a more established team, and as much as I also think a team like DarkZero is very prone sometimes to losing towards bottom tier squads that sometimes they don't know how to prepare for, they may not know what Mirage is going to throw at them, but I also don't think Mirage is the kind of team to upset a squad that already has enough of this kind of established chemistry. And I hate to say it, players on DZ are just better than the players on Mirage for the most part. So I'll stick it to DarkZero because anything else just seems like heresy at this point.
Okay, well, Cookie, will you engage in the heresy or will you step into the light and go with the dark
Become
zero
a
pick
heretic with me.
as it's been posited,
Come on, CJ. Don't be the contrarian.
No, you
Become
said
a
the
heretic.
heresy was voting for Mirage.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Don't be a heretic.
Okay. We have a
Don't
lot
do
of
it.
confusion on the desk right now, apparently, but Cookies could solve it all for us. What's the pick going to be?
DarkZero.
Dark
Get the
Zero.
camera off.
Thank you.
DarkZero. I don't have
All
any
right. Nothing more needs to be said. The man picks DarkZero. Well, that means it's time, once again, ladies and gentlemen, for the silver dollar to come
hate
in.
that
That's
thing.
right. We're going to flip this one. There you go. Heads is going to be Mirage. Tails, it's going to be DarkZero. Let's flip it.
Tails is DZ.
It's heads.
No!
Coin says heads.
No!
It says Mirage. I don't know, man. It is just a coin. It is just an inanimate object, but Pengu, you might have something going there. Who knows? We'll find out. We'll find out. But that's it's gonna pretty much do it for us. That's right. So we are going to we got a poll question. I almost forgot about that.
Ooh.
We have a poll question
Yeah, I
for
can't wait to see
you at home to engage with on the socials, and that question is going to be related to the in-game leaders of these two teams, related specifically to the noise that they make during the game. And
It's
and
kind
you know,
of a hard one, actually.
it is, right? I
Yeah.
mean, this is a pretty decent question. We'll see that in the screen in a moment. But the question is, who's going to scream louder? Is it going to be Canadian or is it going to be Thomas? Now, I will say this. You know, I've seen matches with these teams, right? I've heard Canadian, right, and the player cams and all that kind of stuff. But Thomas is the one that was very outspoken about it when we actually interviewed him. He was saying that it was part of his job to be loud for the sake of his team. So in that sense, you know, for me, I feel like I'd be leaning in the Thomas direction a little bit, but we'll let you, the viewers at home, decide though. Yeah. What do you two think? I'm curious real quick.
I do think when Tommy gets loud, he gets loud in a way funnier way 90% of the time. But then I remember that Troy had that line of like, Bolo has 1 million subscribers and they can't buy a round from the Six Invitational. So this is a pretty even match, but then most people are probably going to vote for Troy because he's Troy. So
Sure, fair
Probably
enough. You agree, Cookies?
I gotta say, I'm gonna say Troy, but I do say it's like, I'm pretty sure I heard a quip that Canadian only gets loud when like things are going well for him, right? Otherwise he's
Oh.
just kind of chill.
I think that's probably true,
And
actually.
then Thomas was on like X and he's screaming. Thomas, I love you. Thomas hasn't been on like a top 4 team in a minute,
Yeah, true.
and he's still screaming. So I gotta say it's probably Thomas.
You got to respect that a little bit. You know,
Well,
you
actually,
actually.
I just said it'd be Canadian, but you know, yeah. I'm
keep
giving
in
you an
mind-
argument for Thomas.
I think you're just emphasizing how difficult it is, actually. Yeah, that's right. So, again, don't forget it's R6NA on Twitter and it's R6 Esports on Instagram. Go and let us know what you think about that particular topic. But we're about to get started with the match in just a moment. Quick break before that, but when we come back, DarkZero takes on Mirage. It's going to be awesome. Enjoy.
6 invitational for us. The start was pretty rocky.
We picked it up and made it out of our group, and SI experience was pretty positive.
We didn't quite maybe meet our expectations for SI. There was definitely games that we felt like we underperformed. Initially, after the Sweden major, basically we could only go up. Right away, we saw improvements.
FaZe felt like the only true team that they were actually like better than us.
As a team, we've come out of it knowing how to handle game day pressures better.
We've found a play style and roles that we like on our team. We've really explored what each player on our team is capable of.
18 seconds left to find out Canadian. He turns the wrong way, sees him once again behind the chassis. It's ring around the rosy, and it's Canadian clutching it out instead.
We played Mirage first almost every stage.
They've always been a tough team against us in scrims, but we've always been able to close it out in matches. And with their new roster changes, I personally don't see them being as strong.
Mirage's roster change, honestly, it's a bit questionable to me.
I just don't see how the roster will work out.
A surprising roster, like not a roster I ever would have imagined to be in Pro League.
Our players are more experienced in Pro League than they are.
We didn't even consider any roster changes, we just kept sticking to the plan, just kept practicing, and we've had big improvements.
Because we don't feel like we're missing anything. All there's left to do now is kind of improve it.
We haven't had any desire to make a change.
Trust what you do in practice so that when it comes to game day, it's effortless to apply.
I think we've only been on an upward trajectory.
The stability of having a roster for so long, we've developed so many other things that will definitely help us. Very confident with the squad.
If I could describe us in one sentence, I'd say just cool, calm, and collected.
Silent but deadly.
I would rate us a solid 10, maybe 11. We're like the Warriors in their prime. And if we played our potential, I don't think there's many teams that can contest against us. I'm excited for this year.
interesting storyline on our hands because we've got a little bit of an underdog in Mirage. Roster changes, can they prevail over the old dogs?
It's such a good question because one of my favorite things as a spectator, as a caster, and as a former player myself is when a new season begins after the 6 Invitationals and a ton of teams make crazy, unpredictable roster changes. What's gonna happen? It seems so easy. Once again, like the 2 previous matchups, it's gonna be a DarkZero like 7-1 victory, right? An absolute stomp. But then again, is it really?
Right, I mean, we've got unknown elements here. We've
Tons.
got a DarkZero that has been grinding. Canadian, he said he wanted to build this roster from the ground up, basically hitting the reset button himself. And on the other side, we've got a Mirage roster also kind of restarting, bringing on 3 new players. That is a big change to make coming into a new season, only keeping 2 of that former core. You add Marmalade, you add Razor, you add you add Melted from Parabellum, right?
Yeah.
You're adding so many different elements, 3 players from 3 different places, and now you're hoping they can mesh under one banner. That's a gamble.
It is, and in the player intro video for DarkZero's team, multiple players were like, we don't really see how the Mirage roster is going to work. Again, not because the players themselves individually are bad, but it seems like an odd mix of players from all different kinds of areas of the game, and a lot of people were like, this doesn't really make a lot of sense, but sometimes it doesn't have to make a lot of sense. When, you know, the current Sonics, the E-United roster that basically almost got relegated, then plus Super, they can win the NAL a year later. Then they can place top 6 at Invite. That didn't make a lot of sense either necessarily. Mirage, well, it's not the same story. They're not like a full 4-man roster plus new IGL, so to speak, but they do have all these odd elements where it's like, well, it can work. We'll have to see.
Right, you've got Marmalade, who hasn't been in the NAL before.
Yeah.
You've got Melted coming in, who, yes, got in the NAL.
Technically hasn't been in NAL yet.
Got in the NAL, but didn't play in a match, really, yet.
Yep.
So, again, you're combining these. What do you get on the other side? They also expressed some doubts in their opponents of DarkZero. I know Razor, the desk talked about respectfully. It was like, hey guys, maybe Troy's leadership, maybe Canadian is not that leader that, you know, he's all put on that pedestal to be. But again, Canadian has so much experience. And even if he's not shooting, even if maybe his leadership is not what it used to be when he was at the top of the world, you know, it is still, he's a tough opponent to take down. He has so much experience, so much game sense, if he can communicate that to his players. And this roster that has been together for quite some time, if they can keep working together and keep working on that, I mean, we can expect big things from them as well. We just saw in our last match the value of working together and grinding. Astralis, really not good last year, really struggled in getting their feet under them, and in day 1, game 1, they already make a statement. Maybe that's exactly what DarkZero are going to be doing.
Absolutely, and I mean, it is one of those things where we always talk about like the map draft as well, right? Like what maps a team is going to go towards, and I would say Bank, as the desk also broke down, is kind of like an evenly-ish matched team. Neither team has done incredibly well on it, but then again, Mirage being a very new roster, they haven't technically played under this current banner. Map bans, or sorry, operator bans are coming out on your screen right away this moment. It'll be Mirage choosing the first attacker to take off the board. It's going to be a Monty, of all things, and that's something that the desk spoke about as well. When you see DarkZero, do you get the shield DarkZero? Do you get the non-shield DarkZero? Well, today, Mirage thought they were going to bring the shield, and therefore, they banned it.
Now, here's a weird one.
Funky bans.
You see, I would say Nook, but I know you have your special pronunciation. How would you say her name?
Nook.
Nook.
You're
okay.
actually very close.
Okay, we're
good job.
Close enough. So we've got a very unusual ban because you rarely see her played at this level 1, and when you do, it's not something that teams, especially on the defensive side, are usually shaking in their boots, going, oh dear, there's a Nook coming. What do we do about this? So that ban is going to be something to keep an eye on as far as the defensive bans go. This is something we see all the time. Mira and those black mirror windows are so incredibly powerful on this map. I mean, this new bank pretty much plays like the bank of old, the bank that you yourself are very familiar with.
And Bank is actually a very historic map for Siege, and so is Coastline. A lot of very big matches and moments in history of this game has been established on Bank and Coastline themselves. And I mean, Troy, he is someone that would know a thing or two about Bank because they played against, Paris Major against T2. There was like the first Caveira interrogation at Major event. Then back in year 1 of Siege, Troy also played on Bank, and Year 1 Season 3 against Playing Dogs and had like a crazy moment there as well. So a lot of history to go over, really. Mirage, they're starting their history on this map on the CEO top floor defense with Valkyrie open, not in play, but a different shield operator is. It's the clash on Tomas on this very first round. So very information heavy, right? The Echo, the Maestro, the walking drone that is a clash. They want to have information to act upon and punish DarkZero for when they come into the building.
We did get spoiled for our first 2 maps of the day, though. We saw some pretty fast-paced action, and Bank generally is a little bit slower paced. And, you know, given that we see the clash here, given that we saw the Monty ban, we see these teams, it looks like they want to maybe lean in to that slower pace. We could see that here from DarkZero, but hey, maybe if they're able to get past this Mirage setup, if they can somehow bypass Tomas on the Clash, take him down early, maybe that can put them in a really good spot. But the thing is, with the Clash, she can be just the best weapon to have, a literal brick wall that you can slap between yourself, the defense, and the attackers. But the danger, of course, is if he gets a little bit too extended, if Tomas puts himself in a little bit of a crossfire or finds a nade at his feet, all of a sudden you have lost a core part of that defensive setup.
You do, and the walls being opened up from the bomb site itself, allowing those long angles from Benji all the way back in this 4-window room, it's going to speak about how crucial the clash is. And Tomas being the IGL as well for Mirage, he actually can put himself in a position to make really good directive callouts like, guys, this is where they're going to be coming from, I need to pull it over here, yo, swing off me, you know, I'm a shield, etc. And it's almost like playing Monty on the defensive side, because you're not supposed to be using your gun at all when you're on the clash. You're going to be extended the entire round and doing exactly just this. It's a deployable shield that can move, Jonah. That's really strong.
Well, it's insane, and look what we've got here. We've got both a deployable shield and a clash in the same position. A classic spot right outside stock here that is usually set up by Wamai. You've got some of those Wamai magnets, of course, because he's banned. Mirage are playing this slightly differently. You still have the shield, but you're using those ADSs in terms of projectile denial, and you're using that clash to actually staff that position. You put Razor right behind Tomas, and you have got a weapon, a lethal weapon that DarkZero have to be careful before they actually step into.
Absolutely. And the only real counter that DC has at their disposal is Canadian on the Sophia, right? The Sophia stuns, once they make contact with Tomas in the clash, she will kind of like expose her shells, or there it is. Expose her stomach, her center mass, and will take it down quite easily. That's Tomas kind of overextending, a little bit too aggressive, but don't follow. But Pambasu, it's party time! Triple kill for him.
He gets one through the wall, taking down Marmalade. I have no idea if he saw her there or just kept spraying, but that is definitely something that Pamba is going to be happy about. I mean, Melted is now going to fall. I mean, I think that's Pamba again who may have gotten that down, potentially seeking that quad kill, but it turns out it is going to be NJR and Canadian, the ones to clean that up. But that is quite a start for DarkZero. It started out slow, and they were working their way in the building very, very methodically. But once they took down that clash, like we said, that was the springboard that they used to just launch the rest of their attack. Pamba just cleaning them up. I mean, look at that, the wall bang to finish it off, and they moved in uncontested.
Yep. Cookie said F2 Basu, but that's not needed right here. It's the ace, and that's something that DarkZero, they have actually been putting Panda on hard support operators before. You know, when they play Clubhouse, we see Panda on the Thermite. This round on Bang, we see Panda on the ace. Now he's hovering the Hibana in this attacker repick drone phase. And I really like this from a younger player like Panda, where often when a new player comes into pro play, he gets put on a very simple role, right? You'll play entry, or you'll play flex, or whichever. But Panda has kind of done a couple of things now. And based on what map that he's playing, that DarkZero's on, he will have a different role and a different job in each and every single one of those. And it really speaks to how much Pambasu is putting in effort to learn the game of Rainbow Six Siege, right? Not just be a one-dimensional Ash main, as most young gunners are. And now we're allowing Hyber, who is no longer the young gunner. He's like the middle pack gunner these days, I guess. You know, he's not Troy, but he's not Panda. And he gets to have fun with finger LMG, so that's great. Everybody gets to shine.
Well, talking about the fluidity that Panda brings to the table, he will continue to be on hard breach, but shifting from the Ace and those Selmas to the X-Kairos pellets of the Hibana. You're headed downstairs now to attack lockers, and that makes sense. You've got to open some hatches. It's like 3 hatches, in fact. Generally, you're going to be wanting to open up early, and that's exactly the weapon you need to do it. You combine that, though, with the hard breach that the Thermite has. Eclipse is also bringing down that secondary hard breacher, so DarkZero should be totally fine in terms of the hard destruction that they've got in this round. But before they can get there, they've got to worry about this roam clear.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing about attack and repick, right? Is that you get the perfect upper lineup. You see the Jackal and you get the Hibana. So you drone the bomb site, you see its basement, you take Hibana and you take the Jackal, you get the roam clears you spoke about, and you get all the hatches that you want to breach opened up. It's the perfect situation. That's going to make Mirage's life so much more difficult. And Razor, if he does not get back on this server stairs right now, he's going to be stuck on this first floor forever.
Yeah, he's trying to get out of there. You can see him. He's trying to dodge that drone, which he shot out just before. Now there's one player up above trying to establish this angle, but Razor read that beautifully. The opening pick taking down Canadian to kick things off, and that's exactly the operator you want to remove. The Jackal, who maybe scanned 1 or 2 of those feet, not going to be able to do it anymore. He's done.
He is, but I would almost argue that Canadian got the job done, right? Because there's no roamers anymore. We know that because Razor literally sprinted towards server stairs when he killed Canadian. So, ironically enough, you picked the Jackal to clear the roamers, and you did just that, but it cost you your life. So, you played the 5 versus 4, but you got the right operators now. You got the Hibana, can open the hatches, you got the Thermite as well. I would argue this is the most amount of hard destruction you can get. You still have 4 grenades and 3 flashbangs, and you have smokes on Eclipse's Thermite as well, so the job isn't over. Mirage, they still gotta hold on.
Yeah, as long as DarkZero don't slow down here, as long as they keep up that attacking momentum, they should still be in a pretty good spot. There's another player just waiting to be picked off. Melted just exposes himself to that angle, and Eclipse, with still 50 HP remaining, is able to pick up that kill.
Yep, and you got a Juno Surges from Finka, right? Hybrid can now boost back up Eclipse to that almost full HP with the fall into a Juno Surges, and now you're playing 4v4. And Melted getting a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too eager to get into this round, and Razor might look to do the same thing, but with more success here.
Well, Razor not trying to give up that second floor pressure just yet. He may have backed off initially, but he's still trying to be a menace on that second floor. It's actually Benji with the pistol that takes down Panda. He gets another? Are you kidding me? Goodbye, NJR. Eclipse falls. Marmalade claims that one. It is all up to Hyper just like that in a 1 versus 4. He is out of time. He has got to step up with 10 seconds left, and simply it is not looking realistic for him. He'll pick up Razor and a nice spray transfer onto Marmalade, but the shotgun from around the corner from Benji and some hype from Marmalade to finish off the round.
Benji getting pistol kill after pistol kill into the shotgun is one of those things where it's like, what is going on? And for a brief moment, it's like, why are you using your pistol if you're playing Jaeger?
M870, baby.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The M870 playing server stairs or instead of server, that's often what happens on Bank where, well, when you are the server stairs operator, you want to have a shotgun, right? Close quarter combat, you want to have the best weapon possible. Often people play the smoke there with the SMG-11, but then the issue is if you lose the smoke canisters, they're so useful later on in the round. So a lot of teams, actually Sonics and Super himself, he would play Jaeger shotgun on that server stage himself as well. But Benji, very, very pro-efficient with the pistol, and that really played a massive factor in that round because it came to a long-distance gunfight as they came up with the garage and main stairs attack from DarkZero.
Always a risk playing the shotgun. You got to rely on that pistol to make it happen, and he did. As you can tell, we do have a little bit of a tech pause as these players are just trying to sort out a quick issue, but I think both teams are probably glad for just a moment to breathe after that really stressful round in that last few seconds. We were talking a lot about, our analyst S was talking a lot about who's going to be louder. Is it going to be Canadian? Is it going to be Tomas? And already we saw Marmalade at least getting pretty hype. So some hype on the Mirage side of things is always a good thing to see.
Yeah, I think it's always great when, and this is as a spectator, right? As a spectator, I like it when it goes 1-1 scoreline in a game because then both teams kind of get activated instead of seeing like a 0-4 and one team is super excited and one team is like, you know what, this kind of sucks, right? Let's get this over with. So now that it's 1-1, it's like, well, both teams are kind of happy with those rounds, and it's not a one-sided stomp from DarkZero. In fact, Mirage can shoot back, just not the first round. But the second one, they very well could.
Well, if we're thinking about overall defensive strategy and what we might see Mirage employing in these next couple of rounds when we come back from this pause, I mean, in that round alone, we saw a combination of a roam presence and then a very good on-site hold. But you got to say, that roam probably enabled those on-site players to do pretty well. I mean, you had a really smart drop back from all those players. They didn't overstay their welcome. They were able to get a kill as well and then immediately fall back, putting themselves in a really good spot. Going upstairs to a site like CEO, where roam is not really possible, could be something that they consider, and that maybe they'll avoid that site going down the line. Maybe they want to favor open area. Maybe they want to favor archives and tellers and see if they can figure something out. I mean, we're just speculating right now, but just based on what worked for them and what gave DarkZero a little bit of trouble, maybe they'll think about that as we move on.
I think it's a very valid point, and I would argue that open area is one of the strongest sites. just because of the fact that you can roam around, you can move around the map, and you can get aggressive. And I mean, we saw Razor, as you said early on, Jackal scanned basically, getting hunted down by DarkZero, still found the kill, still got back to site, safely, and really enabled that 4 versus 5, which then enabled them to get a great position to the round. But what do you know? Back up to CEO we go. They don't agree with us.
I mean, they also are probably thinking about some things that we just don't quite have a handle on yet, right? They probably felt okay with their initial setup. I mean, it did look like it was going well, of course, until Tomas died and then it all crumbled apart. But it looked like they were able to stall out DarkZero for a good minute or two, and that's a great place to start. They just have to find a way to not allow that defense to just fall to pieces when one core component dips away. And maybe that's why we're seeing a bit of a pivot here. We no longer see the clash, right? Tomas shifting to more of a traditional role of that smoke. And in addition to the intel that we saw in the last round from that Maestro and from the Echo, guess what? You've also got a Valkyrie.
I was gonna say, yeah, and Eclipse actually, with the attacker repick, went on to first the Dokebi, to hack the cameras if you get a kill, but then they went to IQ instead. So clearly DarkZero have figured out the operator lineup from the side of Mirage and used the attacker repick to really get, again, the perfect lineup for the situation. When you got the Yokai drones, when you got the Black Eye Valkyrie cameras, they're so difficult to find without the right tools, and well, IQ, she is the perfect tool to find them.
Exactly the counter that DarkZero needed to bring, and smart adjustment given how much intel they saw Mirage bring. Last time we went to this top 4, we can see Eclipse now sitting outside. One of the semi-recent changes of IQ is she no longer needs to worry about how far detecting those and can she ping them? How is the rest of her team going to find them? You can just ping those through the scanner, through the wall to help your team get some clarity. And we saw an example of that early on. Eclipse outside pinged one of those cameras in the lobby, and that was quickly taken down by Panba.
Yeah, it's a great quality of life change, just like with Castle Barricade. You can now just Castle Barricade over a regular barricade instead of pulling down the regular barricade first and then castling it up. And it's these small changes in, late year 6 / early year 7 that's really been elevating the quality of life for Rainbow Six Siege, not just in a competitive setting, but also in a casual setting. All the things, they just feel more intuitive and they feel smoother, and it speeds up the pace of the game as well for these utility-heavy operators. And I mean, Benji, you are going to be in a lot of trouble here because you are all alone. Drones are coming out, yellow pings, right? They know where the ADSs are, and you got capital fire, you got 3 grenades, and you got an NGR on this window rappel cutting off your rotate. You're stuck.
Yeah, he is stuck, and he is in this position pretty much to die. But if he can waste another couple seconds off the clock here, he is sitting in a very good spot. I mean, already 2 minutes gone. And DarkZero have made very little progress. I mean, they're on the rappel and they're working their way through lobby, but that is about all the progress they can really speak to. NJR in this nade could be what opens up the round for them. It'll down Benji, and if a second nade could follow that up, he should be finished off just fine. But Razor actually picks off a kill onto NJR, so no more nades from the sledge.
Yeah, and I don't think they know for sure that he's injured because there hasn't been a drone coming out just yet. The nade did get the injury, but there's no, point system in Pro League, so you just simply don't know anymore. Rappel comes in, the yellow ping comes out, they now know, but they're inside the bomb site.
Eclipse gets the first, Pan, but the second, and Mirage, the defense is crumbling again. Melted though, he stays steadfast, picks up 1, but then 2 trades right back leave Tomas all alone, and Canadian takes him down without a moment's notice. That was a lightning fast execute from DarkZero that really felt like that old traditional style of Siege where you're waiting, you're setting it up, and then 3, 2, 1, execute.
Yeah, and it looked kind of dire right in the beginning for DarkZero because they couldn't clear out Benji, but then the moment that they did, things really sped up. And yeah, the fire missed, the first nade went wide, but the second nade, it got the injury. Then they waited for that final drone to come up and confirm the injury in fact did happen, and once that confirmation was through, that's when they rappelled into the bomb site. The LMG went crazy. That was Canadian himself, Troy, getting 2 kills back to back, and now Mirage, they're on the same page as us, Jonah. They say, you know what, maybe we'll try out open area.
Yeah, I think they've realized that maybe CEO, that's just not it for now. We should move on, and yes, it's going to be open area and break room next for them. A similar theme in terms of intel because Marmalade is going to be sticking the Echo and bringing those Yokai drones, but we do have some substantial changes to talk about. You've got the Mute coming out from Melting, no longer bringing the double intel with the Maestro and the Echo, and also Tomas is bringing out the Kaid and those Electro Claws into the mix here, and that does really feel like a pretty smart decision given the amount of hard destruction that generally those attacking teams will want to get done on the site. If you can hamper that a little bit, you're sitting pretty.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because they changed their entire lineup. Eclipse went from Thermite to Maverick, Panda went from Hibana to Finka, and Canadian went from Flores to Ace. So they did like a full rotation of like who's playing the Heartbreach, who's playing the Flex, who's playing the Injury. Hyper's now on Thatcher, Panda is on the Finka. They changed it up and instantaneously the wall is open.
Yeah, they are moving in so quickly. The Selma charge went down on the wall before Tomas even got that second claw down really quickly and catching Mirage a little bit off guard there. Exactly what DarkZero were looking to do. Given the struggles a little bit they've had with the clock in the past few rounds, a perfect way to make that adaptation. They haven't even had to go upstairs, clear anybody out before that progress is already made.
That sucks. Benji is right next to Razor on castle with a shotgun, but Razor used the C4 instead. That is not efficient. You see right here, one room next to him, right nearby. Shotgun in his back pocket. Doesn't use it. Has to use the C4. Inefficient.
A little bit of a clumsy use of utility, yeah, and that could cost them in the future, especially if that plant is going down. You're out of yokai drones and, well, you're out of C4s. Thankfully, you've got a pretty good gun in the hands of Benji. He hits a nice shot onto NJR, which will definitely kick things off for Mirage the right way. Benji looking for a second, but the UMP, if you're not finding the headshot, you're not doing much.
Yeah, that's the thing, guys. The 100 bullet LMG, you're stemmed up with the adrenal surge. It is so hard to win that gunfight unless you quite literally hits the first bullet headshot. I will say though, for Benji's position and how it was coming about, he got the 1-for-1 trade. That's really great for him. The only thing they really lost was the C4 from Razor, as we touched upon earlier, but outside of that, it's actually not all bad because Sledge being off the board means vertically, there's not that much left anymore.
And you got 2 more C4s in pocket of the defense.
Got tons.
Too, right? Yeah, you've got Melted and you've got Tomas bringing out that C4 and that explosive utility. So at the end of the day, so much plant denial in your pocket when it comes down to that. But right now, the focus for DarkZero, it's on the vertical play. They haven't worked their way to the first floor just yet, aside from maybe a player in lobby or two. There is somebody around the corner, though, and Razor's looking to take this fight, but just like me, he had no idea there was somebody sitting around the corner for a moment, so a double kill for Panva.
Yep, it's a wide swing, and that does not work out at all. Now Tomas finding a gunfight as well on this side window, but he has nowhere to play, but gets injured. That's a great kill now to bring them back, but the side is under attack from Pampasu.
Yeah, Panva, a triple kill so far. There's the quad. He only needs one more, and he spots the head of Melted. All he's got to do is hold left click. He's got only 8 bullets left in the mag, though, so he does have to be a little bit careful. But the plant going down, the coverage is there. Panva does have to reload, so he can't quite get this ace just yet. And Melted gets a kill in the meantime, but now Panva's ready to go. He completes the reload, and he is 1 kill away from that ace. He'll throw a nade to force Melted to move. He'll go for the wide swing, trying to spot something out, but the SMG-11 is not kind in a range like this. Actually, Panva drops down to the basement. That may be accidental, so Hyper is the last player to really get to stare at Melted, but now both
they're
players...
they're gonna give it to him.
Both players have rejoined it. Panva wants the ace, and he will get it. That is so well played from him, just sending himself into that bomb site, getting that first trade, and then taking down every single defender as the round progressed.
Oh my god. I love when players do this actually, because in this situation, right, they played it very smart in the 1v2 with Hyper and Panva, and they basically said, you know what, this round is basically one, Panva, get the ace. So you see Hyper step backwards down the server stairs as Panva comes up to swing, and even if Panva had lost the gunfight, they basically win on time and the fact that Hyper's there, you know, to make sure that if the defuse starts, he can take him out as well. So very well played from them.
And now Mirage, after a demoralizing ace against them, they've got to take their time out. Seeing if they can regroup, seeing maybe which bomb site they want to go to next and what kind of adjustments they can make. 4 rounds into your defense, it's not do or die per se, but this is the time you've got to make those changes. You've already only taken 1 round, and you'd really like to end up the half around that 3-3 split. Bank is one of those maps that maybe historically was a little bit defender-sided, but now we're seeing it kind of fall in that middle ground where attacking teams can sometimes, you know, get that edge. So Mirage, they're definitely looking for at least 1 more, but 2 would be great.
Yeah. Bank getting more and more attacker favor the last, 3 to 4 months, but that's not just Bank, it's Siege in general. With the addition to Ian and Finger having both grenades, the Gun 6, a great weapon, etc., they bring so much firepower to the attacking side. Now with attacker repick as well, it just even further enhances the possibility of attackers being in the favored side because you can bring the perfect operator lineup. We see now is the basement bomb side. Look at DC left-hand side of your screen. They go from Thatcher to Finger and Jackal to Osa. area and it's a basement attack, this kind of indicates from the get-go it could be like a direct server attack, could go garage, but then I get too quick because now they're changing it again. Now they go Hibana to Finka, the Thatcher goes to the Zero, but we are still sticking the Osa. So many things are happening inside the team speak of these teams in attack or repick where they're just deciding what's going to be the approach, what operators do we need, and who's going to play them.
I love this change because we never really know what the attackers are going to bring until that prep phase ends, right? They keep us guessing, which is always fun as casters, and hey, they can bring out some pretty creative lineups while they're doing that. So we've got a combination of the Zero and the Osa right now. So
Yep, there it is.
Maybe looking to get a little bit more in terms of flank watch, but it's possible that DarkZero just want to go a little bit more direct. I mean, like you said, we've got Canadian already on that Osa inside of CCTV looking to make that push.
Yeah, the Osa makes sense for direct attack because of how her gadget works, and then, you know, Eclipse with Thermite, if you can get control above in like bottom square where Eclipse is droning right now, and then Eclipse will come into server, breach both the walls, you put down an Osa shield, then you can plant comfortably behind the shield because there's no lines of sight. Mirage, though, actually have played pretty well around this. Soft walls to the bomb site, the A hatch to the bomb site itself has been opened up, but I would argue that this is a very good counter because of the Osa shield. The only way you die if you're DarkZero is to either a flank or a C4 or a toxic smoke grenade. That's it. No gun should get the kills as long as these Osa shields can stay alive.
Yeah, slipped up a moment ago. Of course, pushing into server with an idea of getting into CCTV in just a moment and using, like you said, that Osa shield to get there. Canadian actually taking this fight, maybe looking for the long angle. He does want to get this second shield employed, though, and he'll be assisted by NJR to get that done. But DarkZero are in an interesting spot because they've got two players ready to go, theoretically, but they don't have vertical control at all. You can see Tomas sitting up above, ready to deny both of these players as they push in. DarkZero, yes, gets that second kill to trade, but again, Mirage, they got the first one right off the rip. So we're back in a 4v4, and DarkZero, yes, they could push this site at any moment, but you still have the smokes from Melted. That's going to delay time. You still have the C4 from Benji to watch out for.
Yeah, that is, and now, you know, if you're Darks, you gotta stall out this utility and just sit tight. Maybe try and get a pick if somebody swings, and there's a swing. Hybrid does not get the kill, however, it's damage done, but that's all there is now. Second smoke grenade from the side of a DC comes out, trying to bait out the plan. In fact, it's real this time. It's coming out.
Canadian already sticking this, and we're trying to see where's that C4 from Benji, where's the swing from Tomas. He'll step up and actually take down Eclipse on the coverage, but the plant will go down uncontested. Panba picked up one in the meanwhile, but now Canadian has a double Osa shield protection. It's actually behind. The bomb is planted behind that Osa shield. You see Mirage trying to throw their bodies at this problem, but it is such an awkward situation. Melted gets one, and now Tomas sticking this defuse. Perfect nade, though, to shut him down, and 20 seconds Mirage have to get this defuse off because Panba is now up above using the vertical play to his advantage. Melted, lit up. Here comes Panba on the drop, but he gets taken down before he can swing the other side. Osa shields, looks like in the end, they actually help the defense a little bit.
Yeah, it's awkward, right? Because it's not like a mirror window where it's a one-way mirror. The Osa shields, they are completely see-through from both sides, and it creates this very awkward situation of like, are you gonna peek me? Am I gonna peek you? And Tomas actually walked up, just punched the first shield and said, you know what? Now you can't see me just yet. And they just swung with 3 people in towards servers, and Canadian, he got overwhelmed and couldn't find any openings. There wasn't enough cover from up above to really assist him in that position, and it really came down to, well, if Canadian can take down 1 or 2 players with him, he's in a great position. And I'd almost argue, if possible, maybe he should have backed up all the way to the dirt tunnel itself, played even further back, and that Osa shield would be a distraction more than anything, because, you know, as you mentioned, they can see you. You're not actually that sneaky.
I love that creativity, though. I mean, clearly Canadian's been putting in the work behind the scenes. I know, you know, BC no longer in the coaching role at DarkZero. You've got Mint stepping into the sole coach, but I know Canadian, he's also a big creative mind behind this team. Really trying to innovate, trying to bring out those Osa shields, and even though it didn't quite work out in the end, love where his head's at, because that's the kind of thing that is going to put you on top of an NA region that is getting increasingly competitive stage after stage.
Absolutely. And it's very logical, right? We saw the Osa doing the attack or repick, and we said it could be a garage to serve direct attack, and we said that because it makes sense. It's almost like the Monty effect. You have a shield, you can walk on in, you have cover, and they did just that, although it didn't really work out exactly as they intended, even though they got the bomb down, which normally would indicate the round is over, because retaking a bomb site as a defender is extremely difficult on Rainbow Six Siege. So normally, when the bomb gets planted, it's to tell you that, you know what, GG guys, good round, just hold an angle now. Mirage did a really good job at playing together and being super aggressive into the retake in union, and therefore finding the picks that they needed.
Well, if they can also play together in this round on this top floor hold, it will also benefit them a lot because once again, it is about the clock, about how much time they can waste as DarkZero try to work their way in the building. Mirage, if they can equalize at 3-3, they will be in a really good spot. And your prediction has, well, a good chance of coming through as we get to that next half. But still, we got to see how Benji can hold this one down because Razor, who is also on that top floor, he's already been taken care of. Benji does get that trade, though, as he drops away to that first floor. So, minute 15 in, you've gone 1 for 1. But for DarkZero, they got the top floor control they were looking for.
I actually think that might have been an oversight from Pambasu and DarkZero because you killed Razor, but last time on this attack, it was Benji that you killed first, so you almost should have known that Benji would be in that same similar position. Pamba didn't realize, he was sprinting inside of lobby and got shot in the back, super easy kill. Slight oversight, but the difference is NGR on this sledge is alive this time around, and Hyper has brought the buck as well, so there's so much soft destruction from the side of DarkZero. And they even have the Maverick to open up the wall into sight. That's what Eclipse is doing right now. Hyper helps him out, and that's just going to apply so much pressure onto Mirage. As you see right here with Tomas running around, nowhere is safe.
Yeah, they're forced to scramble around the bomb site right now as they lose this cover. Like you said, the vertical pressure from above, you've now got the wall open. You have got a very tough place if you want to sit back and try to hide. Marmalade tries to take a fight, actually, but she'll end up losing her life
they're just
because
running.
of it. Yeah, Tomas, literally no idea where to sit, and he'll die just out in the open.
Yep, Benji now has to make a huge play on this flank here, but there aren't even that many players that he can find because half the team of DarkZero are up above, and I think they actually have a good idea that he might be creeping around.
Trying to get a bit of a flank off, but look at this. Both DarkZero players just turned and faced him. They know exactly where he is, and he is not much longer for this world. It is all up to Melted. The bomb's going down, though, and it actually never could go fully down because NJR just got the kill and cleaned it up. So DarkZero, they will bounce back from a troubling round 5. Round 6, they'll take it, so a 4-2 half overall. Pretty good stuff on the attack from them. I like what I saw.
Absolutely, and I think you can be pretty happy with that. Whether the map is attacker favored or defender favored, getting a 4-2 side is always good. It gives you a bit of momentum and a bit of leeway where you're now allowed to make a few mistakes. You know, you can lose the next 2 rounds in a row and you're not even behind, you're tied up 4-4. Whereas if you lose the following 2 rounds if you're Mirage, then we're talking match point 6-2, and that's when the pressure just starts, you know, building even further. And we see DC actually starting on the very bomb site that is open area, the most mobility movement-based bomb site, with the one caveat is like, well, if the attackers get vertical control and you get the breaches open, as we just saw, it becomes very dire. And Pambasu, doing the Pamba special as he also did on Coastline, he's playing Oryx, and he's also 11-3.
Well, you talked about that mobility, and that's exactly why the Oryx is so big here, because he is the definition of mobility on a map like this. Not only can he just, you know, turn his shoulder and burst through a wall, but he can hop up hatches. And on a map like Bank with so many hatches and such a big map at that, a map that is very tough for an attacking team to get the full control over, even when you do have those zero cams, that could be the weapon that DarkZero need to kind of throw Mirage off balance. It'll have to assess if they can spot out that Oryx first, then maybe they'll be on their toes a little bit.
Yeah, and looking at Mirage's lineup, they brought the Zero as well. That's for the information, for the map control, so we can assume they're going to be going up above, much like DC, and try and take as much map control as possible. And in similar fashion of Benji and Razor, it's Canadian on that Roni with the 1.5x trying to contest up above, but Melted getting up these nice Arcus cameras on the Zero, almost in like Valkyrie camera-ish positions if you were a defender, just getting as much vision of lobby as possible and trying to nail down the entire rotation from DarkZero.
Well, Canadian, as you can tell, playing the Mozzie up above, trying to be another roam threat. Oh, he does get spotted out by a drone, though, and so he'll use that Q to drop down the elevator hatch and back off. Razor is not very far behind that drone, so good timing from Canadian to get out of there, and now he can use potentially another weapon that he's got in his pocket. He's got a C4, so the players up above do have to be wary if Canadian decides to work his way back up the main stairs, but for now, he just continues to elude this attack. He'll actually head all the way to the basement to keep mixing things up as the attack continues to work their way in up top.
The big difference here is that Mirage are actually acting a lot faster on the movement, you know, through the map than DarkZero were, and similar story, when they were defending up above, it was 2 players. It was Razor and, Razor, speaking of the man, gets the opening kill. That's the nade onto Eclipse, and Benji making swift movements once out of Teller's archives. They're all over the map.
Yeah, they're trying to move in quickly and open up as many avenues as they can to spot out these defenders. Canadian just narrowly avoiding that angle because it looked like For a moment, Mirage would have a heads up in that gunfight, but now I guess it's Panba who comes under siege. A drone spots him out, so he's forced to dance around the site a little bit and relocate, much like we saw when DarkZero were attacking this site, but it looks like Hyper is able to get something back. He'll take down Tomas, an impact initially missing, but eventually finding the mark, but Melted takes down Panba in response, so Mirage keep that advantage by 1.
Yeah, but the thing is, Mirage has so much time left, almost a full minute on the clock, and they still have one more exothermic charge. They still got the Maverick torch as well to work with that on top, and they have 1 nade left now from the side of Razor. So this impact, if it can strike true, and it does, that's going to buy DC so much protection inside the bomb site. That could be a defining moment for this round.
And the only hard breach that these teams have left, or Mirage has left, is potentially that breaching torch, but it takes a long time to use. You've got the secondary breaching charge from Melted. You got that can opener on the Zero, but you're running out of time, and now you're running out of bodies. Melted is gone, Razor is gone, and last alive is Benji. He has 3 defenders to find, and he's got 15 seconds. That diffuser is not going to be recovered in time. This round is looking all but over for him unless he can pull out a miracle. He's got the LMG and more than enough bullets to do so. He'll pick up the first onto Hyper, but as he vaults in the window, he gets taken down before he even knew what hit him.
Yeah, it actually looks so cursed that there's like 16 seconds left and Benji goes for a reload because he has to with the LMG, and it's like, give me 6 seconds, guys. Oh, now I can go. Gets 1 kill, and then, he has to jump in the window, gets taken out. There's no way you win that gunfight, unfortunately. But DC, obviously, playing open area with a very good understanding of the win condition from the side of Mirage, right? The Thermite. Trying to breach open the walls. They play 2 different sets of impacts, so that's 4. And, well, Hyper missed 1, then hit the second, and that's fine because there's a backup set on Eclipse as well on that Maestro, and you don't even need to do any work on that bomb site if you deny the walls from being opened up because they simply have no real way in. Sure, Melted had the can opener, the secondary heartbreach gadget. Sure, Razor was playing the torch on Maverick, but they never really got to use them in full effect, and therefore, well, the walls just did not get opened up, and it didn't really work out for them.
I love that reload sound, by the way. I wonder if you could get that in the game, as I reload that LMG here. That's great. That's great. But, yeah, like you said, we are now... it's not quite dire straits for Mirage, but, you are 1 round away from potentially match point in terms of your opponents being on match point, so they've got to pick it up here. They do not want to allow 1 more round just to slip away. Going with the same lineup as well, so really keeping the same concept in terms of the intel from the Zero and the dual hard breach. I'd like to see a little bit more variation, though, considering we have repick and you can change it up based on the site. We're going to the basement after all, and where's the Habana?
That's a very good point. Super said it. When you have attacker repick, you should always have the best lineup possible. When you're attacking basement and you're running Thermite and secondary can openers, I would argue it's an all-right situation, but there are better, tools available. And speaking of historic, and like Bank being a historic map, you know what's historic right now? Canadian on Pulse. That is something that I love to see because it just brings back memories from 4 or 5 years back. Bank basement, you're sitting on the bomb site, you're scanning into server, you're scanning main stairs flank. You're like, okay, no one's holding main stairs. Guys, I'm going to run up and make a play. And, well, Mirage, they're working their way through the map, sure, but they're actually a bit slower than the previous time. They haven't found a kill. They haven't really gotten much done so far, considering the DarkZero are all in the basement. Like, there's no roaming presence from them really at all. I say that there's a guy in open area like sitting on the hatch, but Eclipse hasn't moved a muscle. So does he really have a roaming presence? I don't think so. He's more like sitting, waiting, killing 1 drone, and likely dropping.
Right, only 2 of those Mirage drones have actually been taken down, so it's possible he's just trying to sit in the corner and bide his time, but now he's definitely exposed his position.
There it is.
And so now
that's the
drops.
1 drone.
Right, not a lot of pressure being applied from him in terms of the entire map, but in the same vein, Mirage not getting there all that quickly, but they now have 90 seconds to get their way onto that first floor and begin pressuring the basement. No more roamers, no more surprises to deal with, but the thing is, for DarkZero, they've got Canadian on that pulse. Like you said, they're going to know exactly where Mirage are coming from and exactly how to position to counter them. Are they going to see that vault drop? Are they going to see that server push? Canadian has all those answers.
Yeah, we see Pamba actually using the smoke canisters on the server stairs like we spoke of earlier, and then we're like, well, the toxic babes are needed for the plant later, and that's where NGR on the Tashanga is going to be supplementing or replacing the smoke because Pambasu is expected to die on the server stairs. If he doesn't, that's great, but let's be completely honest, he's not supposed to live for another 20 seconds.
Well, here comes the nade on cue. Pamba somehow avoids it, whips out the shotgun, goes right up the stairs, but only finds his grave up top. Almost makes quite a play happen, but Tomas takes him down before he can do much more. So finally, with 30 seconds left in the round, here come Mirage. Canadian knows what's coming, though. He's got a C4 ready. He's got the Chachanka and those Shumika launchers ready to go, and this could stall out the remainder of the clock. Mirage, all they've got to do, well, they're going to have to push through that fire. If they don't, they're going to be in a bit of a tough spot. You could have this drop from above, though, but again, the fire right on Marmalade's landing spot. Is she getting this plant down in the fire? Maybe just avoiding it, but sticking this plant with 5 seconds left, a perfect C4 that pretty much ends the round for Mirage, unless Razor can secure this, and the coverage is there. Otherwise, this is going to be a tough plant to stick. NJR collects another kill, and we're in a 2v2, but now we are in a post plant. Razor and Benji find the last two, and Mirage turn it around, recovering that diffuser with 2 seconds left, sticking it. Great coverage and securing the round because of it. Well played.
That is ridiculous, right? Marm, like, juked the fire by like an inch. Just an inch. I thought she was in the fire as well. She wasn't taking damage. She was indeed safe. C4 comes out. Teammate almost takes it out, but once again, 1 inch too far away, misses the C4. Marm goes down planting, doing what support players do. Then the replacement comes in, and you just trust the process. You trust that your teammate will cover you adequately, and that you will not die while holding down that F button and trying to get the plant down, and it worked. The cover from Mirage was superb. There was no answer available from DarkZero. I don't think there was any more C4s. I would argue, or think at least, there was a Shurima launcher, grenade left. But in that moment, do you really want to swap your weapon and reload while all that madness and chaos is going on? Because while they were planting, players were aggressing into the bomb site and creating a distraction because they knew if the plant goes down, we'll be okay. That's our win condition. And, well, DC, they're changing up the bomb site, started in open, went to basement. Now, for the first time in this matchup, Taylor's Archives bomb site, actually, which before the bang rework, this was like the, absolute most poor defending bomb site in the world. It was terrible. It's like Bar and Clubhouse. It just didn't work because all that vertical destruction above. And then we gotta look at the lineup again. Jackal's being brought up from Razor. They can now clear the map extremely fast, presumably, and Canadian, once again, solo roaming up above. Actually, I take that back. Panba's there. He broke it. There is support for him. Good for DC.
Right, you also have those Banshees set up. You have those Kona stations that are being brought out from the Thunderbird, which give you a little bit of health and fortify those power positions, those extended positions that you're looking to hold on the defense. So really, if Pamba does take a bullet or two, he can drop back to the site, get healed up, and really nobody has to be the wiser. So that could be the setup that DZ are trying to go here. You've got that dual hold on the top floor, and again, it's going to be all about the clock. It's going to be all about the utility, and anything they can waste on the side of Mirage is going to put them in a really good spot on the defense.
Yeah, but Benji is in there. I don't think they know just yet. And Canadian inside the top floor elevator can drop down if he has to, and well, half the drones are being killed from the side of Mirage. Only 5 left right now, and that means that no info from Benji will be found. They don't know. Canadian drops that might give away the sound cue, but he knows somebody might be inside of ATM, and indeed there is. Melted on those Arcus cameras on the Zero. You don't need that many drones alive because Zero's gadget will give you the same amount of information, if not more.
Well, with that information, Mirage are looking to pinch these players out. There's somebody positioned on the basement stairs as well who may be looking to get involved and work their way up to the first floor, but Benji is not going to allow that to happen, holding that angle still for the last about 15-20 seconds from that top floor. Now you're throwing Razor into the mix, and Benji, there's the cue, taking down Canadian, who did try to get involved, simply not allowing that kind of aggressive play. So great coverage from Mirage here, but you gotta be careful. You've got Eclipse to worry about. Panba also stepping up, surprising Razor, surprising Benji, and Mirage, they thought they had this control, but they just didn't have enough.
Yeah, that's DC getting active. Hyper follows up as well. So that's 3 for 3 there, and separate players from the lineup. It's just individual 1v1 gunfights going in favor of one team. That is DarkZero right now. 2 versus 4. A minute left on the clock, and Marm trying to find a free pick, but there's nobody here really on this hard one side of open areas. One player from DC hiding. Melted, similar story. They're just hiding from their opponents. DC doesn't want to give them anything, but Marm inside the bomb site gets taken out, leaving just Melted left.
Yeah, there he goes.
Even
NJR cleaning them up with the assault rifle in hand. The Thunderbird working well for him, and DarkZero as a whole, that was a very cohesive round. It looked like Mirage had made some good progress. They had forced DarkZero off of those roam positions, but in the same vein, DarkZero also allowing that to happen. They did back off. They did give up that control in order to save their lives, and even though Canadian did get a bit too aggressive for his own good eventually, you had a several players willing to step up and bring that one back. We saw them get a little bit aggressive, and the control that Mirage thought they had was quickly stripped away. Then there were 2 players left. It was Melted and Marmalade, and they really couldn't do much to pick up the pieces.
We had we've done some interviews with players and coaches and stuff throughout the last week or 2 and whatnot to kind of build up storylines and get insight and kind of see where the players' heads at with Rainbow Six Siege right now on the current rosters. And I don't know if you have the exact quote on hand from Tomas, but he was like something a lot of gunpower.
Gunpower, yeah.
Yeah, he's like something very much massive gunpower. And who's gonna scream louder, Jonah?
This was a tough question.
It
right?
was.
Much like we talked about the gunpower he can bring in game, he brings a lot of that hype, Tomas. But it looks like the community decided it was Canadian.
It was close,
though. More hype, but it was much closer than our last poll.
58-42 is actually, considering the fact that you're up against Canadian, like the IGL, the person. And then you have Tomas, who's, like, with all due respect, Tomas is a great person, great player, but, like, you cannot compare these two in the IGL, department. Very close vote. I respect the fact that the community respected this choice.
Yeah, and we haven't seen a ton of Tomas popping up and screaming. It could be that he's not doing that. Maybe we're just not catching him in the right moments. But to be fair, Mirage, only won 3 rounds. There hasn't been a ton of those hype clutch moments that maybe he's used to. So that has put them in a little bit of tough spot. So I can see where the community's coming from on that poll. But back to the action in front of us, because it is match point. And Mirage, it is their last shot to bring this one back. They've got to pull off a 3-round comeback, 3 rounds in a row on any DarkZero site they could possibly choose, just to send this one to overtime and try to secure that 1 point. DarkZero, they're looking for those 3 points. They're looking to close it out right now.
It's funny to watch this because Razor and Canadian, they do the exact same thing every round, right? Razor will go in at about 2:35, and then Canadian drops at about 2:11, and right when Canadian drops, Razor chases him. And it's happened like 3 rounds back to back to back. Now it's like both of these teams are so telegraphed because they have like a checklist in their mind of how they want to approach the map, and it just speaks to the experience that the players in Mirage that have been playing for a long time, that they bring, right? Because they clearly have a very set way of playing the game, something that DC is known for themselves to be a little bit slow. I believe Doa said perfection to a fault, where sometimes DC, they get caught kind of trying to do everything perfectly, and then the clock runs out and they look fools, to be blunt, right? It was like, oh, you lost on time, even though the round was perfect. Like, that's not actually good. So I like seeing from Mirage that they're not just running around like headless chickens, trying to figure out where are the enemies. They actually have a very set goal in mind with each and every single action.
Well, Melted is actually the one to take the first brief skirmish, but neither player, him nor, I believe that maybe was Panbo, or no, NJR holding that angle, trying to get something going. But yes, you've got a bit of a play with Eclipse from below, holding the shotgun. He's joined by Canadian.
Oh, it's another breach. The shotgun hatch to C4. Look at this. Wait for it. The call should be coming out here.
There
C4.
Oh, that's beautiful!
Yes!
Canadian takes down Razor. The perfect timing on that. Hyper will collect a kill onto Tomas at the same time. Melted falls thanks to Hyper as he cleans that one up. Marmalade will get recovered, but it is still a 2v4. That was so well played there from DarkZero. Some really good intel and well-timed. Mirage had no idea what just hit them. Marmalade, having just been revived, is on incredibly low HP. You've got Benji trying to make something happen, but you can't get this wall open. You're not going to be able to do much. You've only got 20 seconds remaining on this clock. Marmalade unsure of where exactly these defenders are positioned, trying to flash Canadian on the blue stairs, picking up that kill, thankfully, but now they are out of time. Castled out of here. They've just got to sprint on in, but NJR denies them both. Goodbye, Marmalade and Benji, and that is the map. Cleaned up nicely by DarkZero. We had a couple of rounds in the middle where maybe it looked like Mirage could make a comeback, but for the most part, it was a DarkZero map. Deserved the win.
Absolutely, and I will say, both teams played strategically, both teams played well, but during the intro sessions, the players from DarkZero said, we feel really great. We feel like we actually have improved since the 6 Invitationals, where, they've been on this kind of slow upcline the last 6 or 8 months or so, and I will agree, yes, Mirage might be argued as a weaker opponent, so beating them the way that they did, 7-3 is not anything to be amazed by, but I will say, their gameplay looked solid, it looked good, but it did for both teams. I think there is stuff to take away from this, from Mirage as well. We can say, Playday 3, 4, 5, later in stage 1. I think Mirage will look like, not just like a different team, but but a slightly better team as well as they learn, in this process of the early games.
I mean, when you think about it, Mirage as a roster, as a core 5, they have had very little time together.
The least, I think, of any team.
Right, Marmalade joining this roster only a couple of weeks ago, if that. So trying to wrangle together a strat book and a strategy and that cohesion, that communication, all of those elements that make a successful team in the NAL, anywhere internationally in Siege, it's tough. It's tough to do that on such short notice. And on the other side, DarkZero, they have been together for so long with leadership, core leadership for such a long time. It's no surprise that they took this one, but I do agree with you that it should be good to see Mirage as they continue to develop, when we get a better idea of what roles they're going to play and how their strategy kind of evolves with the stage.
I fully agree, and to be honest, taking DarkZero to bank, where Caliber Jacob spoke about how neither team really has crazy tons of success on this map, it is kind of impressive to me because Bang is a huge map. A lot of flanks, a lot of open, choices, operator lineups. I will say, and we spoke about this during the cast as well, one of the faults where I think Mirage fell a little bit short was the usage of their attacker repick, right? Basically never playing Hibana, and it's not just good for basement bomb set in general. If you're getting impact tricked 2 times in a row on an open area attack with Thermite, it's like, maybe you should bring the Ace or the Hibana that has more hard breach destruction so that the impacts won't matter as much. They didn't seem to learn from that, on the fly, and I think when they look back at this game for what reviewing, they will learn just that for the future.
All right, well, speaking of the future, that's exactly where we're headed. We've got a couple more best of ones coming your way. We've got 2 more games today, and of course, we got to break this one down and see what our analysts have to say about this one. Before that, a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the NAL, everybody. Here we are, Doa Jacob and Cookies here on the desk. We just witnessed DarkZero getting a pretty convincing win over Mirage, as many expected, as the coin did not predict correctly. But again, it is an inanimate object. It's random. That's the point. Don't worry about it too much. Oh, and too, but we aren't going to talk about that too much. But we are going to talk to none other than Canadian, who is standing by over in Vegas. to chat with us a little bit about that series. Canadian, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Hey, all right, how's it going? We've Twitter DM'd a couple times, but it's great to finally get to chat with you a little bit. Congrats on the win. You know, as an OG in esports myself, you know, this question kind of like hits me a little bit too. But when I was talking to some of the younger players when I was over in Vegas a couple weeks ago, they were saying that it was maybe kind of time for some of the old guard to start thinking about moving on. What do you got to say about that?
I think none of them have played with me for a reason.
Ooh, okay. All right. Anything else to add to that?
I mean, just most players that have played with me all realize what I can bring to a team, and I don't think I have any former teammates that would say things like that about me. And I think it makes sense that young players say that, and I've had young players that I've teamed with that thought that before I teamed with them, and then I teamed with them, and they're like, "Wow, you play a different game than I do." And I realize, so it's just. It is what it is. I'm used to it at this point.
No, I get that. What's the off-season picture look like for you guys? You were one of the only teams that didn't decide to make any changes over the course of said off-season. You had a good placement at the Six Invitational. There was an obvious sign of improvement from the group stage all the way through to playoffs. But what did it look like with that big break between SI and now? What's the main thing that you did to hopefully improve for Stage 1?
I mean, it was just the same old, just lots of reps, continuing to improve. We knew we've been on the right track ever since I joined the team. It's been nothing but improvement the whole way. At SI, I think our group stage was a bit rockier than we hoped for, but we did end up making up for it in the playoffs, I'd say, but could have been even better, you know, if we showed up in groups like we kind of expected of ourselves. But, you know, getting that kind of stuff out of the way where, like, we have a shaky group stage and getting those kind of nerves almost out of the way, I think it prepares us for future tournaments more so than anything. So it's just bound to happen. Valuable experience to have. But leading up to this season, just more reps. Obviously, the map pool changed a ton, so learning new maps, incorporating attacker repick a lot, lack of reveal phase for defenders, all that stuff. Just kind of incorporating it all into our playstyle, figuring some things out, and just learning the game.
Okay, and last question, Troy. Can you address the haters? They talk about how I'm trying to listen. I don't know, you need to watch the segment back, because I try to tell these people, right, you're the one that came up with the, you know, being on a frag and roll and kind of still calling the shots. Can you say, like, describe or talk about how ridiculous some of these claims are that, oh, you can't do it because, like, you're old or something? Like, I just, like, defend your honor here, because I think these people are crazy.
I mean, I think so too, but there's not a lot to say. I mean, I just have to show up and prove it. I don't think I have performed individually the best, but I don't think I've been, you know, crapping the bed. I don't know what I'm allowed and not allowed to say on here, so we're going to go with that.
I think that works. I think we got the idea, I think.
Yeah. But, yeah, I haven't been doing anything like that, so I don't think it's been too bad. But I do expect more for myself, and I've been putting in time to improve further, and I think I have. And yeah, I'm looking forward to showing that, but yeah, I'm definitely capable of doing it on that role. I've done it in the past.
Thank you.
I do think it's more demanding to be able to do it currently. I think there's more talented players, but that's not to say that it's impossible to do. I know I can handle it, and yeah, it's just a different way of playing the game, and I've played the game like this before, and I can do it again.
Fair enough. So I know Cookie said last question, but I got one more for you. So, you know, we have had a lot of roster changes in the offseason, things like that. You did mention, too, like the skill of the players, it seems like mechanically is rising over time. So how do you kind of approach that when you're playing against a team that has a lot of unknowns? You know the reputations of the individual players, but you've never really faced them as a unit before. What's the difference, say, between like prepping for a team like that and prepping for a team that hasn't had changes, something like a TSM where you know what you're kind of up against to a certain extent?
Yeah, it definitely different preparation. Like a team like Mirage, we have nothing to go off of, right? It's a completely different roster. No history of a map pool with this roster. We don't know anything about it. We know the kind of players they have, so maybe we can make some assumptions, but you can't do all that much. So more than anything, we just focus on our game and maybe how we want to play against what we think their play style may be. But I think that's kind of the most we can do. I mean, obviously you focus on your own play style and whatnot against teams that you know better as well, but you can, tailor your map vetoes a bit more, right? You can change your op bans a bit more, get more targeted. Maybe you can prefer certain bomb sites because, they're good at attacking certain bomb sites. But that goes into effect when you're playing against those experienced teams with lots of footage and, well-renowned play styles.
Right, that makes sense. All right, well, thanks for the words. Thanks for the interview. Good luck on the practice coming up. Good luck on your upcoming matches, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, there you go. Canadian from DarkZero. Again, like we talked about earlier, convincing win over Mirage. Let's talk about that. Let's hit some of the general points from it. That one felt short. I think we were talking about it backstage when we were watching that series. It felt like it was going pretty quickly, because usually we like to discuss things a little bit more, but like that was almost kind of a blink and you miss it kind of thing.
It felt like coming into this game, we figured it was going to be slow, but only in the sense that sometimes it would take up until like the very, very last couple minutes of a round for there to be discernible action.
Fair enough.
Not so much the case here. I felt like we saw moments where DarkZero members, especially on attack, would explode into a bomb site and give one avenue all the way into the middle of it and take control and splinter Mirage almost into like two separate groups. Like even if they had like an anchor on site, sometimes they'd be trapped and that'd be really easy for DarkZero to clear. There were some moments where it seemed like maybe Mirage has an edge, but that kind of got given away very quickly, or they survived on a miracle play. That's just not the kind of substantial stuff that can lead to long-term success. So it just DarkZero, again, like I mentioned, they simply have better players on that team.
So when you talk about, Mirage having an edge sometimes in certain situations, because, it feels like there is obviously a lot of talent on that team. Everyone talks about that, right? We were talking about that earlier, the talent on the individual players on Mirage. But how do you kind of like translate that to game success? So did you notice any kind of bright spots for Mirage today?
I did on the strategy side.
All right.
Like what they did with the Clash on the top four. The thing is, Pamba was just, he played it perfectly. It's kind of what I talked about in the pre-show or pre-game, whatever.
Yeah.
You throw your hard breach or whatever, or plant it, or whatever breach you're playing, and you just terminate things. Yeah, it was good coordination from DZ to get rid of the Clash by the stun and then the shooting and Panda being Pammed, but it's like, I like that strategy. It was pretty creative. You have the Clash top of the stairs, trying to play stock that way. It's just, DZ happened to be the better team today. So I don't think that they should go and hang their heads and, oh, woe is me, right? Just keep playing like that. Keep trying different things and trying to invite. I think it's, I want to say DNA and Guerra Mirage. Good
Guerra,
coaches.
yep.
Keep coaching. Keep coaching them up. They're young players.
Yeah.
They're going to get there. Don't blow up the team again,
It's only one game, that's true. I still
Literally,
think the map selection, the fact that Mirage allowed it to get all the way to bank is still probably a bit concerning, just understanding DarkZero's history. And yeah, they did just beat TSM on it. So that might have been probably like the nail in the coffin, like before the game even got started. And it felt like when Mirage did win rounds, it was off of like some DZ mistakes sometimes. They couldn't stop like Razor from resecuring a plant and getting that basement drop off. They couldn't rely on Troy peeking over an Osa shield. He still did it anyway, and they still won the round off of it. But like at what point do you capitalize on so many of your opponent's mistakes? Why not play the game in a more definitive way that means you don't have to worry about waiting for them to do something like that?
Fair enough. Let's take a look at some of the individual moments from that match that kind of stood out. I think the first one we're going to look at is from round number 4, and this was our first ace of the season. It didn't take very long. Only got to our third.
We got there.
Yeah, we got to our third match. We got the ace, right? It was Pambazoo. But let's kind of break down that one. That was an exciting round.
Yep, first time we see an ace and already off the board. So Benji's been killed by Panba. This is just, again, showcasing how good the LMG is on Finka. But it's not just a matter of, oh, jump into site and find a couple players. DarkZero actually give Panba a whole bunch of freedom to work with. I believe he comes through tellers on this round, and he's about to come right in and smoke Thomas's pack. But that's because he's getting additional coverage, especially on vertical play, that forces the players from Mirage who are on the site into corners, and meaning that they really can't move until Panba just decides to show up in their midst. So he'll find all the kills, but Panba also has a whole bunch of resilience at the end of the play too. You can hold defensive positions here for Mirage, like you'll see Razor like bottom marble, but now that drone, he's already cleared in, and now he understands he has to reposition, and there's Panda right there for the cleanup. This kind of thing persists. Now he'll come back into like through tellers, through to archives. The fact that Tommy was sitting here, we were kind of like, wait, well, what's the point of this? But across the map, Panba again finds that kill, and that rotate is still an option. Panba's just sitting here inside staff. And for the rest of this, it's kind of a cat and mouse back and forth game, but you'll see what Panba does when he falls and drops down a hatch to make sure that even though he doesn't have to gun for this last kill, he'll just play the position game to make sure that DarkZero can win the round off time.
Yep, and Bonus points for he saw Eclipse die, so that made him even more conservative about what he was going to do there. He actually...
True.
I'm not going to spoil it, but look what he does. He runs to small, and he like kind of falls down the hatch there. I mean, that's just playing it as safe as you can be, right? Knowing, and that's just intelligence. The brain power on Panbazoo. That's like 7 billion IQ because he knows you can run back up the server stairs, post plant where they planted that, and it's genius, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Be like Batman, you know, kind of go in, take people out one by one, be elusive, and eventually get the ace. Pretty sick stuff. But maybe not, you know, I would say it's impressive to get the ace. That was very clinical, though, what we saw. That was very methodical. What was a little bit less clinical, less methodical, but even more exciting, perhaps, is going to be our next clip coming from round number 10, where Canadian kind of gets a chance to, you know, kind of show people that he's still got it, you know, and of course he's still got it. Why is this even a question, right?
Right.
I don't know. Let's check that out.
Hey, trust me, I really don't know. I don't know why people keep saying that.
I don't know either, but this is one of my favorite moments. It was pretty fun. Let's watch it.
Let's see. Well, Troy Canadian and his team. This is a nerdy C4. This is what I would describe as greasy. This is something I would describe as a 4 a.m. dry ran improvised C4. Look at this. Eclipse is going to use that stubby. Look at this. He's going to pop it. Canadian's going to throw it. No chance for Razor and Marmalade to get obliterated.
Beautiful.
They're droning right now.
And let me tell you, that is so frustrating you get outplayed to that extent.
I'm telling you, these kids looking at their phones the whole time, you know, you got to pay attention. Otherwise, the nitro cell is going to come in. You know, that happens, right? Here's our stats for the round. What do the numbers tell you? 7-3, obviously, but what else do you notice, Jacob?
If nothing else, this kind of proves what I mentioned. Even though Panba might not be someone who's like hard prioritizing entry, that he's still going to be the guy who can clean up that kill. NJR and even Canadian, like we hardly even called Hyper's name in that game, and yet he's still 8-4 with a 90% cost. Panba will be the guy to find the frags. It's a matter of the way in which DarkZero pressured them to be able to do that. If it's some guys on a rappel, both of them shepherding defenders, especially on heavy roam games, which Mirage employed several times, into a position where Panba's usually the one finding the frag. And if he's not playing something like a Nomad, he'll whip out a Finka with the best of them. It's the same thing that NJR found a whole bunch of success on back at the Invitational, and that trend just continues. Nice that Benji was able to lead the way for Mirage, because we did have doubts about whether like some other players on his team getting dropped over him was the right call, but it's nice that he still had a nice day statistically even in a loss.
So 7-3, would you have believed that DarkZero would have a less convincing win over Mirage than Astralis had over Sonics coming into the day?
Okay, but the shock factor of that game is still we're still kind of reeling from that one.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. It's just something to kind of ruminate over. But let's get some final thoughts before we get set for our next series here. How about you, Cookies? Go ahead.
Well, I think it's pretty cut and dry, you know. Both teams, they have their question marks. I wouldn't say that any of them are answered yet. Mirage still has... we still need to watch a lot more Mirage.
Yeah.
They're youthful and all. And DZ,
only one game.
I mean, it was maybe a Mirage team that's kind of in transition that they beat today. So we still got a lot of questions to ask going into tomorrow.
Yeah, considerably less ones about DarkZero as well. Like that, what Troy mentioned about seeing constant improvement since he joined the team. It's very true. Like the Sweden major, when I don't even remember how many of those games they won, but it still wasn't enough to make it out of groups. And then that improvement going into finals, only just barely losing to the Sonics, and then hopping to right into SI and having what was like a top 8 placement, if memory serves. They've done fantastically. And I'm also loving how, in spite of not understanding where Mirage wanted to play or like what their map pool is, they went to something that they've played tons of times, and that kind of dominant win is exactly what they needed today.
Yep, that's confidence, that's execution, that's what we like to see here at NAL. You know what else we like to see? We like to see the world champs, TSM, taking on Oxygen. That's what you will see when we come back from this break, so do not go anywhere. The Rainbow Six North American League returns right after this.